Instacart is on a mission to have you not leave the couch this basketball season. Because between the pre-game rituals and the post-game interviews, it can be difficult to find time for everything else. So let Instacart take care of your game day snacks or weekly restocks and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Because we hear it's bad luck to be hungry on game day. So download the Instacart app today and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply for 3 orders in 14 days, excludes restaurants.
In communities across the country, hourly Amazon employees earn an average of over $22 an hour, with opportunities to grow their career and their paycheck. Learn more at aboutamazon.com.
Ever wonder what your lashes are destined for? The cards have spoken. Maybelline New York Mascara does it all. Whether you crave fully fan lashes with Lash Sensational, big, bold volume from the Colossal, a dramatic lift with Falsies Lash Lift, or natural-looking volume from Great Lash, your perfect lash future awaits. Manifest your best mascara today. Shop Maybelline New York and discover your lash destiny. Shop now at Walmart.
Picture this. You're in the garage, hands covered in grease, just finished up tuning your engine with a part you found on eBay. And you realize, you know what? I could also use new brakes. So where do you go next? Back to eBay. And you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. You order a part, and if it doesn't fit, send it back. Simple as that. So when you dive into your next car project, start with eBay. All the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love.
Oh, this is the Daily Tech News for Friday, April 18th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know. Follow up on context. We're going to do that today for sure in multiple ways. And we're just trying to help each other understand.
Well, today, a follow-up on both of Google's antitrust cases, and Andy Beach tells us about Adobe's agents.
They're not secret agents anymore, because Andy's going to tell them about it. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm into it now.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. Nintendo has announced that the new pre-order date for the Switch 2 in Canada and the US will be April 24th. The price has not changed from the originally announced $449.99, nor, as I suspected might happen, has the price changed for the Mario Kart World Bundle at $499.99, nor have they changed the price of the somewhat expensive game prices. Those have not changed either. So where are they making up for these tariff increases, you may ask, and you may rightly want to know. And I will rightly tell you, it's in the accessories. If you want to buy an extra controller, that goes up $5. $95 for the Joy-Con, $85 for the Pro Controller. Switch 2 camera, you're going to fork over an extra, is that Hamilton on the $10 bill? You're going to fork over an extra $10 to $55. Unless you're in Canada, it won't be a Hamilton. But the dock set went up $10 as well to $120. Even a spare controller strap went up $1 to $14. And this may not be the last word on pricing either. Nintendo wrote, just to cover their bases, other adjustments to the price of any Nintendo product are also possible in the future, depending on market conditions. So this is for now, in a world where for now doesn't mean forever. I think, though, when this is a good example of how a certain percentage tariff increase does not translate directly into the same percentage increase in price.
Yeah, I think this was actually pretty smart, although I feel like I should have seen this coming, because obviously the accessories ecosystem is a huge part probably of their revenue for the Switch, and I go for a long period of time too, because I don't think we ever stop buying, at least in my house, we don't ever stop buying accessories, especially Joy-Cons and presumably straps as well. So this seems like a smart move. I just think just to me, it seems, that's really smart, just because they probably do get a little more extended revenue stream that I don't know the proper economics term. Not an economist. I've been saying a lot the last 3 weeks, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a little comforting, although I don't think the fact that the game prices haven't gone down isn't comforting, but the fact that I think that there are ways to avoid that gives people at least the impression or a better sense of security is not the right word, but just a little warmer feeling than, 24 reassurances. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, of course, you have to hedge it these days, but it is really interesting strategy. And I think it's something unique to the Switch too, right? Just because it is not just a single product, but a series of a product in its own accessories ecosystem. And they probably have all these wonderful numbers on like I guess the number of Joy-Cons and straps and everything else that they probably did some fancy math and managed to work it out. So it's pretty impressive, but I think you're right. It's a really good example of how this might work out in the short term to midterm for us as consumers. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think you're right that Switch is in a different situation than some other manufacturers, but the pattern here is what I think you will see, because as I am wont to remind people, demand plays as much of a role in setting a price as cost. Cost isn't even the most important factor in setting a price, but everybody talks about it as if it is. So what Nintendo is doing here is saying your demand for accessories is more elastic than it is for the console.
Yeah.
We're already pushing the edge on the price of the console, so we had to keep it down. How can we, I don't know if it's going to be a loss leader per se, but how can we sell someone a console and then make the money off of them other ways?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I'm way less price discriminating, and I probably should be more price discriminating when it comes to accessories, because when you spend $450 on something, a $15 strap, you're like, man, that's much less than $450. Like, sure, yeah, I'll get an extra strap. And I know a lot of people do shop around and find alternative ways of doing these and DIY ways of doing it, but a lot of people don't, because they're like, whatever, I'll just pay the $90 to get the new controller. Fine, that's faster. And again, we're less discriminative with prices, I think. How about you?
I think the same. And I think it almost feels like not sunk cost fallacy, but if you've already invested in the console, I think each little, incremental purchase, as you basically are saying, it becomes less of a, the math becomes simpler, and it becomes like, well, I'm already invested in the system. I need,
what's another 20, 50, whatever. Yeah.
It is interesting though, if you do like some sort of quick math on some of the percent increases, the biggest percent increase was the Switch 2 camera, which is a new component, right? And it is I think everything else is like less than 10% ish, like around somewhere 10% increase. The Switch 2 camera went up 25% ish, a little less than 25% ish, from $255. So that's $10 increase. So that's interesting too, because it is a new component. It is, is a camera. So obviously the manufacturing or the manufacturing costs are higher. But I did think that was actually really interesting too, though, because this is going to be a new element in their ecosystem as well. How many people are going to buy the camera? How much usage is it going to see? And of course, again, as an expensive component. So I'd be curious to see whether, it's a new product also. I think that's also the benefit of that too. No one has a Switch 2 camera yet. So we can't say, oh, boo, the price of this thing that I'm used to has gone up. We don't know, actually the reviews were good, but we don't know, what the kind of broader audience
they
or
may
appetite for it.
Have stockpiled it less,
Oh, that's a good point.
It's new. Who knows where the components are coming from? Maybe that plays into it. And they may realize that they're not going to sell as many of them anyway. So it's not as price sensitive, and they want to maximize what they're going to get on each one from the people who do buy it, because the people who do buy it will buy it anyway. That could be
100%. Yeah. Well, that was really super interesting. I wish Mario Kart World wasn't so expensive by itself, but at least the bundle's still
it's way cheaper in the bundle.
$500, way cheaper.
I really thought the bundle would go up and still be cheaper than buying them separately, and they would make the money there, but they didn't. They put it all in the accessories. So there you go. What do I know?
If you're someone who thinks the games were overpriced, that might be an arguing point for you, but Well, DTS is made possible by you, the listener. Thanks to Dale McCahey, Matt Zaglin, Jeff Wilkes, and welcome a new patron, Alan. Yay. Welcome, Alan.
Hey, welcome, Alan. Everybody say hi.
Picture this. You're in the garage, hands covered in grease, just finished up tuning your engine with a part you found on eBay, and you realize, you know what? I could also use new brakes. So where do you go next? Back to eBay. You can find anything there. It's unreal. Wipers, headlights, even cold air intakes. It's all there. And you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. You order a part, and if it doesn't fit, send it back. Simple as that. Look, DIY fixes can be major. Doesn't matter if it's just maintenance or a major mod. You got it, especially when things are guaranteed to fit. So when you dive into your next car project, start with eBay. All the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. This podcast is brought to you by Ecovacs, the global leader in robotic vacuum and mop innovation. Say goodbye to dirty mop water and grimy floors. The all-new Osmo Roller Mop in the Dbot X8 Pro Omni features breakthrough technology that continuously washes itself as it mops. That means no cross-contamination of filth and bacteria, just impeccably clean floors on a roll. Why settle for spreading dirt around when you can have a mop that truly cleans? Ready to experience the future of floor cleaning? Learn more at ecovacsx8.com/roller. That's ecovacsx8.com/roller.
In communities across the country, hourly Amazon employees earn an average of over $22 an hour, with opportunities to grow their career and their paycheck. Learn more at aboutamazon.com.
If you wear glasses, you know how hard it is to find the perfect pair. But step into a Warby Parker store, and you'll see it doesn't have to be. Not only will you find a great selection of frames, you'll also meet helpful advisors and friendly optometrists. Yep, many Warby Parker locations also offer eye exams. So the next time you need glasses, sunglasses, contact lenses, or a new prescription, you know where to look. To find a Warby Parker store near you or to book an eye exam, head over to warbyparker.com/retail.
Banking with Capital One helps you keep more money in your wallet with no fees or minimums on checking accounts and no overdraft fees. Just ask the Capital One bank guy. It's pretty much all he talks about, in a good way. He'd also tell you that this podcast is his favorite podcast, too. Aw, really? Thanks, Capital One bank guy. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
There's more we need to know. Let's get to the briefs.
Well, 2 China-based shopping apps have shot to the top of the free app chart on iPhone this week. TechCrunch notes that marketplace app DHgate reached number 2 and retail app Taobao got to number 5. So this follows a TikTok trend of videos that claim that luxury goods like Louis Vuitton and Yves Saint Laurent are made by Chinese manufacturers and shipped to places like France, where labels are applied. The idea is you can get the same handbags and such for much cheaper by buying directly from the manufacturer. DHgate and Taobao are often used as examples of where you can buy these items. And this trend, combined with coming price rises from Huyen and Temu, has led to a lot of people at least looking at the other apps.
Yeah, I suspected, I've actually seen some reporting that there's a campaign within China to get these companies to drum up more business. And this is an interesting way. It's one that caught on. I heard about it from Eileen like last week, like right when it was starting up. You don't get them labeled. I think that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
They don't get the label on them. But so I don't know how many people, because a lot of times, you know, when you buy YSL, you want it to say YSL on it. So I don't know how many people are going to go for that. But if you're like, oh, I just like the style, I like the look, then this is an interesting way of doing it. It feels a little like the red envelope. What was it? Not red envelope. What was the TikTok replacement that had its brief moment in the sun until TikTok came back in the US?
Was it? It wasn't Lemon, was it?
Little Red Book.
Oh, Little Red Book. Sorry.
Yeah.
The Chinese one.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. My bad.
Yeah. It feels a little like that, where like these shot to the top of the charts because there's a viral TikTok trend that everybody's examining. There's a difference between having a lot of downloads and installs and having a lot of sales. And we'll see if it makes much of a difference there. I expect in a couple of weeks, these are just going to fall back out of the top of the charts in the US.
I think they will make some money. I mean, I guess I don't really know this market though, but it does feel like everyone's kind of like in a panic a little bit just to kind of get what they want when they can. I have definitely bought a lot of K-beauty products in the last 2-3 weeks. So I wouldn't sympathize this. Just to be safe. I didn't like buy 8 bottles of the same lotion just, for nothing.
We should have brought back more from Incheon now that I'm thinking about it. Another new generative model trend has come with the launch of the new O3 and O4 mini models on ChatGPT, finding out where a photo was taken without cheating and using the metadata. Don't look at the GPS. Don't look and see what's in the EXIF. These reasoning models can analyze details in the image itself, then search the web to look for clues on where that photo might have been taken. Examples shared by people included some pretty obscure images, like a close-up on a window pane that was identified correctly, rather generic-looking bends in a stream that it's able to go like, yep, that's in that national park. However, TechCrunch pointed out this isn't new. You could already do this with previous models. Some are even better than the current models, but it's just that with these new models coming out, it caught people's imagination now.
So could you use this on GeoGuessr just to become like the not really, but faux GeoGuessr?
Like become the GeoGuess champ? Is this going to be a GeoGuess controversy?
Right?
Like you can't be using ChatGPT.
Because a window pane. Oh, okay.
Well, and then there's obviously the privacy implications of somebody, making sure they're good about their EXIF data not being there, but taking a picture of a plant in their front yard and then having this be able to go like, oh, that's from this address, So,
ooh,
yeah, there's you got to think about that as well. But again, as TechCrunch points out, you could already do that. There's a difference. I know it's security through obscurity, but there's a difference between a capability and suddenly everybody knowing you can do that.
Well, not so obscure in maybe now. Oh, dear. Well, Intel CEO Lip Bhutan is flattening the company's executive structure. Networking chip chief Sachin Katti was promoted to CTO and AI chief. 3 technical execs who oversee chip units now report directly to Tan. Previously, there were several layers of executives between the technical leaders and the CEO.
Yep. Just trying to make this we're now in the Tan era of Intel, making things more efficient. Google is rolling out its smaller, faster, more efficient Gemini 2.5 Flash model in preview. Developers can start accessing 2.5 Flash in an API now. Google says it is priced lower than most competitors, 15 cents per million tokens for input, 60 cents per million without reasoning for output, or $3.50 per million with it. And Google is offering all Android users Gemini live video and screen sharing for free now. Before, you had to have a Pixel 9 or a Galaxy S25 to use it for free. Now you got Android. It can handle it. You can do it. Gemini live video and screen sharing is the one that lets you ask questions about what you're looking at on the screen. You can just be on a web page and go, what does that word mean? Stuff like that.
I really do wonder whether they missed out on using maybe some Daft Punk to advertise Gemini 2.5. Smaller, faster, better, stronger. Anyway.
It's not too late.
It's not too late. There you go, Google. There's a tip for you. Well, most iOS apps offer support for Apple Intelligence by default. Developers can choose to turn off that support, and Meta has done so in Facebook, WhatsApp, and Threads, according to Brazilian blog Sorcerer Hat Tech. That means you can't use Apple's proofreading or other writing tools in those apps. It also means you can't create and share Genmojis. You can use Meta AI in those apps. It's an interesting revelation in light of a Wall Street Journal report that Apple and Meta discussed a partnership to incorporate Meta's Llama models in Apple products. The Wall Street Journal sources say Apple decided not to make a partnership because it was not comfortable with Meta's privacy policies.
I never know how much sour grapes plays a part in corporate decisions. I think we tend to overestimate how much it does. But these are humans making these decisions. And so I'm like, part of this could be Meta being like, oh, you don't like our privacy policies? Fine. We don't like yours either. We're not going to use your Apple Intelligence. But there could be a legitimate argument that they want to have control of the experience and they have very good models. And so they'll provide writing tools, et cetera. So I just hope this doesn't end up being a war where, Apple starts blocking people from using their own tools. Like, it would be annoying.
Yeah, for sure. And not a good thing to do, being under the lens of so many investigations and lawsuits, et cetera, I guess for both companies, honestly. So
yeah. Nobody is escaping these days. Netflix reported its Q1 numbers, the first report where it's focusing on revenue and therefore no longer sharing subscriber numbers, signaling that it's moving from the customer acquisition part of its business cycle into the growth phase and operating like a profitable company, which it is. Revenue number was good, up 12.5%. Earnings per share of $6.61 per share, beating expectations. It forecast 15% growth for Q2. And during the earnings call, co-CEO Ted Sarandos said he hopes AI can make films 10% better, not just the 50% cheaper that James Cameron is out there talking about. He said, quote, Our talent today is using AI tools to do set references, previs, VFX sequence prep, shot planning, all kinds of things today that kind of make the process better.
Well, IDC's latest report on the Chinese smartphone market showed Apple as the only phone maker declining in market share. Xiaomi now leads the market with 18.6%, followed closely by Huawei, then Oppo and Vivo, with Apple dropping to fifth and a 13.7% market share. Huawei does seem to be leveling out, growing 10%, while Xiaomi made a big jump up to 39.9%.
Yeah, I interpret this personally as Huawei and Xiaomi took a bite out of the apple because of tariffs, nationalistic sentiment.
Yes.
Also lack of Apple. Apple wants you to think it's just because Apple Intelligence has been delayed. I think that is part of it, but I don't think it's the majority of it. And it seems like Xiaomi is benefiting the most out of this. Like Huawei was having big growth numbers because it was coming back from zero. And it seems like Xiaomi is now like, we are replacing Apple in people's minds.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's like the trends we've seen. And I mean, like, to be honest, like, I think they've done a really good job at pushing both the more domestic companies and really trying to really trying to separate themselves from Western companies. I think Huawei, for example, is even like creating its own OS. So I can't help but think that is just the kind of that Chinese market, which we don't have great insight to here, but that it is itself kind of like kind of shoring itself up and kind of, I don't know, just shoring itself up and kind of, I guess, propping up or being more enthusiastic about domestic manufacturers. So
yeah, it's showing that it has a strong smartphone market and that it can satisfy it from within, at least for now. All right, let's take a moment today and do a second look. I might want to do this more often on the show. Let me know what you think. We're going to look at a big story from this week that ties into a story coming Monday. It's about Google and antitrust. You probably heard, if you listen to the show, that there was a big Google antitrust decision earlier this week. But on Monday, a remedy hearing begins in one of the antitrust cases against Google, which is going to be confusing for a lot of people because they're going to think, oh, is that related to the decision in the other antitrust case? And the answer is no. So let's try to sort out a few things to help you keep this straight. The case that was decided this week was about ad tools. You heard Jason and Huyen talk about that on Thursday. You can keep it straight in your mind by thinking about it as not on Google. The judge determined that Google abused its dominant position by tying ad serving and ad exchanges together in Google Ad Manager. So you could also think about it as the Google Ad Manager case. It applies to how ads are sold all over the internet. That's the problem. Google's tools are being used everywhere instead of competing tools. There's not a very competitive market for this sort of thing. The harm, the judge found, was locking out competitors and reducing product features, that the product would have had more desirable features and people wanted features and Google wouldn't give it to them, et cetera, et cetera. So a remedy hearing is when the judge says, and because of your dominant position, we're going to order you to do this to fix it. That remedy hearing has not been set yet for this case and probably won't happen for months. The remedy hearing that's starting Monday is about Google's search advertising. And it's both about advertising, so it's a little confusing, but you can think about this one as regarding ads on search, mostly on Google. In this case, a different judge determined that Google abused its dominant position to sell text ads on its search engine by pursuing exclusive deals with Mozilla, Samsung, Apple, etc. So this is the Google search ads case. The harm was that text ad rates became no longer price sensitive, and Google didn't set them ridiculously high, but they didn't have to give cuts. There could be competitors out there with lower prices and people would still have to use Google because you just wouldn't reach your customers otherwise. So that is the remedy hearing that starts Monday. The remedy hearing in the search ads case is going to last a few weeks. Then the judge will take a while, maybe even a couple of months, to determine what he thinks the remedy should be. That remedy won't be what the Department of Justice asked for. You're going to see that in the headlines. Oh, they should get rid of Chrome. They should get rid of Android. It'll be what the judge thinks is appropriate. If you ask me, I think he's going to rule narrowly that Google should be prevented from exclusive search advertising deals for the next 10 years or something like that. Anyway, after he rules that, Google will appeal. So whatever the judge rules, whenever we find out what the remedy order is, the whole process begins again. And this is going to take a few years. So even if he were to order they have to divest Chrome, Google's going to appeal that. So none of this is going to be resolved anytime soon. And the same process will eventually happen in the Google Ad Manager case. Google will have to wait a while to get a remedy order, and then it's going to appeal. So this is not going to be done for a long time.
It's kind of fascinating to see. Like, I think it just usually as a person of the general public, I usually kind of see these, like, I don't, because just frankly, I don't often understand what's going on, or at least before I did the show, I didn't really often understand what's going on. And so a lot of this feels just like a kind of lumped in case of like, okay, Google's doing anti-competitive things, but it's just, it's so interesting how kind of finite in particular. And I suppose that's a side effect of like needing to be particular for like lawsuits of this scale, just to be very specific about what is the specific harm and what, and so by therefore whatever, adding some other words, what the remedy should be. It's just kind of fascinating to see like the different elements of this and how, I don't think nuanced, but just complicated the whole situation is. And
because I think when you just follow the headlines, you get sucked into the like, Microsoft's going to have to get broken up. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, why didn't they get broken up? And the answer is, well, there was nuance in it, and there was remedy hearings, and then there were appeals, right? Yeah, one judge orders them broken up, but then they appeal, and the next judge goes, I think that goes too far. So you just got to wait for the whole process to play out. And usually by the time it plays out, the entire marketplace has changed. Like search ads might not even be a thing by this time this all plays out.
I guess that's one way of playing the long game. My goodness.
Yeah. Well, those are the essentials for today. Let's dive a little deeper into an ongoing story and follow up again.
Well, agents are a big trend right now. Usually they're described as using the web to book a restaurant or scraping through databases and spreadsheets to make charts for you. However, Adobe is using them to help you edit photos and videos. Well, what does that mean? Tom talked with Andy Beach to find out.
Andy, thanks for joining us to understand this, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Tom. Appreciate it.
So what is Adobe doing to Photoshop and Premiere Pro? What is this all about?
You've said it. They are bringing in creative agents. What they are doing is effectively, just like they add in lots of features that end up expanding the menus and making it a little more complex to understand how to operate and use the digital tools that they have. They're now going to have a prompt-driven interface that will allow you to simplify some of the more complex tasks that you might have, whether it's editing or editing a video or editing of a layered Photoshop file.
I think a lot of people assumed that already was there because Adobe had some LLMs integrated as already, and you could describe things. What's the difference between what an agent can do and what you could do before by just writing in a prompt?
So what you could do before was a lot of early attempts to take the LLM and write a prompt to describe a particular part of a scene or something else. But then if you wanted to get very granular and you wanted to do the cleanup work, that was still very manual and very interventionist, that you had to go in and do that. And so there was still a fairly high level of education and knowledge of the tool itself that was going to be needed in order to use it. And what this is now allowing you to do is offload some of that work to the agent. And you won't do it as a single interaction. It'll be a conversation back and forth, just as if you were effectively standing over the shoulder of someone that was doing the work, and you were talking back and forth as they got closer to the finished result.
I will be able to say, I need all those clouds gone. And then the agent will say, do you want every cloud gone? Just the white ones, just the gray ones? Or is it that's the kind of thing you're talking about?
It can be exactly that granular. And I wanted to talk, it doesn't come up in this article from The Verge, but I did want to call out the underlying technology that's here, because this is something that we're going to be seeing a lot more of. And in fact, I think it's a phrase. I think this might be the next evolution past just an agent that we're talking about, which is the open standard that's driving this interaction is something called Model Context Protocol. protocol, or MCP. And what that really means is it's an open standard whereby you can allow an LLM to control anything that has like a well-defined API surface. And a number of people, when you see this talked about in the industry trades, they think of it as like the USB-C port for an AI application. In other words, it's a universal adapter that allows me to now take any tool that has an API surface and then just take an AI agent or an LLM and start defining work. And in fact, I've seen working demos from startups where they take something like Blender or Unreal, which also have very well-defined APIs for interacting. And you can now take just, Claude or ChatGPT and write a protocol between the two so that I can describe what I want. And then it just goes and launches and runs your local copy of that of the application and does that for you. And what Adobe has done is they've taken advantage of that protocol here and they've integrated it straight in as a feature right in their own product. So they're just eating their own dog food. They're using their own APIs that already exist that others have access to in order to bring that enhanced experience around.
Is there an advantage to Adobe doing it that way, or would you get the same result if you went and used the API and plugged it into an LLM yourself?
There is almost always API documentation gets pretty massive, but there's always usually some hidden or private APIs that are just for the developers to use. Sure. Particularly in something like Creative Cloud, where you've got a lot of cross compatibility between a lot of different applications. So they will have an advantage because there will be something that they restrict to purely themselves, that they can now take advantage of.
And the end result here, if I'm understanding it right, is I don't have to be the person who says, well, I don't need Photoshop because I can't take advantage of all the tools, because now I can just describe what I want and the agent will take advantage of the tools for me.
Yeah, I've said this in a couple of other pieces, and it was a higher level concept when I talked about it earlier, that AI was bringing a democratization to creative work. This is an example of that in practice. So this is them taking something that is pretty complex. Like, I use Photoshop, but I am not a Photoshop expert by any stretch of the imagination. I use it for very simple things. In fact, I'm probably overpaying for a thing in reality. But this is now going to allow people to do much more sophisticated things over time with it without having to spend 15,000 hours to become the expert in the filters and the layers and the wands and the other pieces.
So the positive argument is, I, as an artist, have less of a filter between me and executing my artistic vision. I can imagine it, describe it, and then it happens without me having to learn all of the tools. I think the counter argument might be, yes, but knowing how those tools work helps you as an artist know what's possible. How do you feel this affects that?
I think there's two pieces there. On that first one, there's a lot of conversation that always goes on when you talk about any creative source, whether it's doing Photoshop work or writing or even video editing, is the creative moment is called the flow state. And when you're in that flow, when you're in that moment, you're creating, you're doing the storytelling and the other pieces. This type of tooling keeps you in that flow state, because the thing that pulls you out of it is, oh, now I need to suddenly go do this thing with the tool and I don't think I know how to do it. And I need to stop and Google and go watch a YouTube video. And so you break that state. And so now you can stay in that moment more and you can be more productive and more efficient with the work that you're getting done.
But you might not know to ask for something if you aren't as conversant with the tools.
I think it's possible and it's a risk. And I think that's where we have to look for other, we're not going to just have one version of an agent. We will have things that will have to surface elements to us, or maybe we have something that recommends. But I think humans are pretty inherently creative. And in fact, a lot of times we push the boundaries with our creativity of what they can do. And then we have to reverse engineer the feature into the tooling. This might find ways to be clever about how we do something in that other state. So I know it's not perfect, but I think it's still a positive step forward.
No, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, one of the things that LLMs are famous at doing is being able to create code It's
Right.
not impossible that this kind of situation leads to someone asking for something that no one thought the API could do, but the LLM goes, well, if I'm allowed to create a little script, maybe I can make it do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was recently at NAB, and one of the things I noticed that there were a lot more demos than there had been in years past. And as I asked about why there was such a wide range, it was because they were able to code up the samples much quicker, because they were able to hand a lot of it off to LLMs to do something. So they could basically go describe the demo they wanted, hand it the existing code base, and very quickly pull together more versions and more pieces than we typically would see at a show. You usually get the one version of the demo that's really good, or the maybe two examples. And here I was seeing five or six from a small company that is only 15 people. They were able to put together, a pretty compelling suite of demos that showed end to end what their vision was going to look like for the product. And it helped me understand it better.
Crazy to think that you could add features to the software while you're using it. That is a possibility now. Andy Beach, thank you so much for joining us. You write about this all the time on your excellent Substack. If folks want to get that, where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to document the convergence of AI and media tech, and I'm over at abeach.substack.com.
Thanks again, man.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, what do you want to hear us talk about on the show? One way to let us know is our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Today, Andrew shares an instance in his daily life where Google Translate is smoothing things over.
Yeah, we talked about Google Translate on my trip to Japan, and Andrew says, we have a lady in my art class whose English is pretty awful, and her conversations with the instructor result in looks of confusion on both sides. It's a real comedy routine. But after a few attempts, she turns to Translate on her phone to ask the question and understand the answers. So smooths things right over.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's very cool. Thanks, Andrew, for sharing that.
In communities across the country, hourly Amazon employees earn an average of over $22 an hour, with opportunities to grow their career and their paycheck. Learn more at aboutamazon.com.
Ever wonder what your lashes are destined for? The cards have spoken. Maybelline New York Mascara does it all. Whether you crave fully fan lashes with Lash Sensational, big, bold volume from the Colossal, a dramatic lift with Falsies Lash Lift, or natural-looking volume from Great Lash, your perfect lash future awaits. Manifest your best mascara today. Shop Maybelline New York and discover your lash destiny. Shop now at Walmart.
Well, what are you thinking about? Do you have some insights into a story? Well, share it with us. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com.
Big thanks to Andy Beach and Andrew R. for contributing to today's show. Thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. The show is made possible by our patrons on patreon.com/DTNS. And don't forget, we just launched a new show, Music News, in less than 5 minutes. Brian Ibbett, Eileen Rivera. Check it out, dailymusicheadlines.com. Talk to you Monday. This week's episodes of Daily Tech News Show Briefing were created by the following people. Host, producer, and writer Tom Merritt. Host and writer Jason Howell. Co-host Rob Dunwood. Co-host Jen Cutter. Co-host Wentway Dow. Co-host Shannon Morse. Producer Anthony Lemos. Producer Roger Chang. Editor Hammond Chamberlain. Editor Victor Bognot. Science correspondent Dr. Nikki Ackermans. Social media producer and moderator Zoe Detterding. Our mods, Beatmaster W. Scottus1, BioCow, Captain Kipper, Steve Guadarrama, Paul Reese, Matthew J. Stevens, a.k.a. Gadget Virtuoso, and J.D. Galloway. Mod and video hosting by Dan Christensen. Music provided by Martin Bell and Dan Luters. Art by Len Peralta. Acast ad support from Tatiana Matias. Patreon support from Tom McNeil. Our guests this week were Andy Beach, Anthony Spadafora, Tanner Goodman, Bodie Grimm, and Matteo Doni. And thanks to all our patrons who make the show possible.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Now at Verizon, we have some big news for your peace of mind. For all our customers, existing and new, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on My Plan and My Home. That's future you peace of mind. And everyone can save on a brand new phone on My Plan when you trade in any phone from one of our top brands. That's new phone peace of mind. Because at Verizon, whether you're already a customer or you're just joining us, we got you. Visit Verizon today. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
To remind you that 60% of sales on Amazon come from independent sellers, here's Tracy from Lily's of Charleston.
Hi, y'all. We make barbecue sauce, hot sauce, and specialty popcorn.
They get help from Amazon to grow their small business faster.
They handle all our shipping and logistics, which is a big help.
All loaded up. Have a great day, Tracy.
Hot stuff, Tracy.
Ooh, honey.
Shop small business on Amazon.